Chris Cantwell is with us here tonight. Chris, you brought in the issue you actually didn't get a chance to bring to the table last week. It was about threats and a court decision. Supreme Court, is it?
It's not a decision. They're deciding to hear the case is what's going on. So the highest court in the United States, the Supreme Court of the United States, is about to take up this case.
About threatening. And what does it mean to threaten someone?
Exactly. So the case is about Anthony Ilonis, and he... After he got divorced, him and his wife separated, and she took his kids and stuff, right? So he goes on Facebook and says things like he hopes that bad things happen to her, and he wants to kill cops, and he wrote rap lyrics to this effect and would put them on his Facebook profile. And there was an incident that the FBI...
So wait, he wrote his own lyrics, or they were lyrics from other songs?
Wrote his own lyrics.
Okay.
And so to my understanding, I obviously don't have every post right here in front of me, but my understanding is that the posts were sort of vague, not saying I'm going to come and kill this person at this time, right? It's I think that I hope that my wife dies and I want to kill cops and stuff like that.
How many rap songs have been written about, some ex that the rapper doesn't like anymore and wants to see bad things come to? Eminem, I think, has written some songs about his wife.
I'm sure there's some other brands of music that have done the same thing.
Yeah, every Eminem album has a song about him murdering Kim, I believe, right? So, this is a pretty common occurrence for somebody to say these things, in a rap song.
Seems like well-trodden ground in this case.
Yeah, but in this instance, the gentleman was sentenced to 4 years in jail.
Whoa.
And so he's
not as successful as Eminem, apparently.
Right, exactly. And this is sort of one of these things that, he's Eminem and he's got, this voice and this audience and the money to fight people in court. Yeah. And this gentleman clearly does not have any of these things. He's apparently been sort of cleaned out, had a rough divorce and a child custody situation.
Not uncommon, right?
I wonder
not uncommon at all.
I wonder how he's afforded to pay up until this point.
I don't know, but it's, I imagine that whatever he has paid has certainly not helped his financial situation any to this point. Now he's facing 4 years in jail. And so...
wouldn't he already have gone to jail in this case? Because in a lot of cases, you go to jail and they don't let you... If I were to go to jail here in a few months when I go to trial, I can appeal once and stay out and then go to the jury trial. But if I get convicted at the jury trial, even if I want to appeal to the Supreme Court, I'm going to sit in jail while the appeal processes.
Yeah, it doesn't... I haven't seen anything that says that he's in custody, but it's also not saying that he's out. It would seem to me like that would be like a relevant bit of information, but in the Engadget article that I have here, it doesn't say whether he's in custody or out on bail.
So this case is threatening to change the way threatening is considered legally, correct?
I think what it's looking to do is define it, right? Because, there's some difference of opinion here, right? And in my case, I've been worried about this. So for me personally, I know that there was an incident, Larkin Rose wrote this story, When Should You Shoot a Cop? And he got a visit from the feds afterwards. And people often say to me, there are people who accuse me of being a federal agent because I haven't been arrested for making threatening statements about police yet, right? And so this is a situation that, I'm sort of surprised by it, too. Some of my articles have, over 100,000 hits on them. They've been quoted in national newspapers and stuff like that about me talking about these ideas. And I'm terrified that I'm going to come get a visit from federal agents and I'm going to be locked up for sedition or something. And in this case... they're going to say, okay, when is this actually a threat, right? I wrote a rap song, right? I said, today I'm fighting back and stuff.
I remember that.
Yeah. And, there's some statements in there about police that are not so kind, shall we say. And these types of things, if it's a crime to go out on the internet and make vague, non-specific things about, make vague, non-specific threats, well, by that standard, me personally, I could be locked up for that, right? I was extraordinarily worried about this in New York. New York has its own statute. They call it criminal anarchy. In New Hampshire, we have a constitutional right to revolution, so I imagine that this is somewhat diminished. But I'm still, terrified that at some point I'm going to be prosecuted for statements that I've made. I'm pretty much planning on it. And so I hope that in this case that it does not, that the court overturns it, because if you're making, to me, a threat, right? If I say... I'm going to kill Ian Freeman, right? Like, that's a threat. We all pretty much understand that, and this justifies some sort of response.
It'd be
right?
even worse if you like took out a collection, and like raised money for this activity.
Right. If I went on like one of these assassination market Bitcoin things or something like that, and
like you gave out like say a Bitcoin address on your website, and like I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, you start taking, and well, that's another step into it, right? When you actually take action on your threat, right?
Correct.
So I mean, there's levels of a threat, right? So if I say I don't like this person very much, like everybody sort of is like, okay, well, that's not a threat, right? But if I say I really want something bad to happen to this person, well, is that now a threat?
No,
if I say I'm going to cause damage to this person,
that's
okay, now I'm threatening, right? If I go and I take action on that, if I start raising money to hire an assassin, right? Now I've actually engaged in a forward action in a conspiracy to commit murder, right? So there's all these different levels to it, and I don't think it's particularly well defined. This is not the first time that we've heard about people being arrested for making threatening statements, or saying that they have a desire to do damage to people or to government or whatever. And so
what's the issue in this case? This guy made some posts on Facebook. He wrote some lyrics for rap songs that sort of suggested he might want to hurt his ex-wife.
Yeah, and police. And so, like, he had gotten a visit from the FBI, right? And the FBI came and visited him, I guess, in a similar fashion to when they came and visited Larkin Rose, that they're like, hey, we hear about, you making these threats. And the FBI agent came, and he talked to the FBI agent, and the FBI agent did not take him into custody. After the FBI agent left, he was like, I really wanted to slit that woman's throat on Facebook, and then they came back and they arrested him, right, and charged him with these. I don't know exactly what statutes they're accusing him of violating here, but they charged him with crimes, and he's facing 4 years in jail, or is maybe
and
presently
these are federal.
serving it.
These are federal charges, or are they state?
I believe it was the FBI who picked him up, so it would seem to me that this is a federal case, and it's going to the Supreme Court.
So the Supreme Court is going to look at the issue of what is a threat. Now, legally, is there information in the story about what generally is considered to be a threat now? Because this may change that definition, right? Like, it may make it worse.
So here's from the Engadget article. It says, now the Supreme Court will have to decide whether or not the Facebook postings crossed the line. So they're not determining, if you can threaten someone via Facebook, because you obviously can. They're determining the content of these threats, right? And unfortunately, they don't quote all of them to us here. But so the normal standard set for such cases is whether or not a reasonable person would feel threatened by the actions. But Alonis's attorneys argue that isn't appropriate given the venue for the missives. The defendant's wife isn't his friend on Facebook, and he did not send her
they
messaging.
weren't directed to her, is what you're saying.
Right. So, like, he's not sending her a direct message. He's
Gotcha.
saying on Facebook, like, I want you to die and stuff like that, right? But he's saying, like, I want my ex-wife dead or something to that effect. I'm not quoting the guy, but this is the thing. He's just saying publicly on Facebook that he has these desires, right? So is his posting of his desires for bad things to happen, or that he wishes to go and do something, is that a threat?
And the lower courts are saying it was.
The lower courts are saying that it was. So the defendant's wife isn't his friend on Facebook, and he did not send menacing messages to her directly. Instead, he posted them publicly to his own wall. Essentially, he never meant for her to see what he wrote, and those who saw his words might misinterpret them because they didn't know him personally. The government's counter-argument is that the law is designed to prevent violence, not just actual physical violence, but also the anguish that The government's counter-argument is that the law is designed to prevent not just physical violence, but also the anguish that the perceived threat causes. Alonis's conviction has been upheld twice, and regardless how the court finds, the decision will have widespread implications for free speech, cyberbullying, and the internet in general.
The implication being that so long as someone feels like they could be put in danger based on what someone else says, even if it's not to them, that therefore it would be considered a threat.
Right, and I think it's an important differentiation because, like, I open carry in New Hampshire, and there's been a case here.
Let's come back with more here in moments. The toll-free number is 855-450-FREE. What's a threat? We're talking about threats and what is a threat. It's not just this story, of course, Chris. We've been talking in the past about remember the guy that got arrested for writing some lyrics on his Facebook profile in Boston shortly after the Boston bombing?
Right.
So there was that guy. I don't even know what happened to him. I don't know if he's still facing charges or what's going on.
He got those charges got dropped.
Oh,
and
thank goodness.
Yeah, and the thing, so I'm interested. We knew more about exactly what that gentleman had said, and I almost wish that he had become the test case, right? Because his really was like very innocuous. Like he was talking about like school shootings or something like that, but he was talking about he was a guy who rapped on a regular basis, and this was clearly an artistic expression, and they charged him anyway. But they ended up dropping the charges because they were afraid of winding up in the Supreme Court as they have in this case.
I wonder if he countersued in that case because they held him in jail for a while, if I'm recalling correctly.
I believe they did, and I don't know anything if there was a follow-up lawsuit.
Yeah.
I'll be interested.
I didn't expect you to, so I appreciate that.
But like the thing is, the question is now, is a threat when you actually threaten a person where you're making a direct threat, or is a person's annoyance or alarm sufficient cause to use force against a person, to kidnap a person and put them in jail for 4 years, right?
I say it's not.
I say it's not either. And so like we've got in New Hampshire, we've got open carry here. You can legally open carry a weapon, and there's a court case in New Hampshire that says that's your right to do it, and a person's annoyance or alarm is not
a factor.
Not a factor. Now, on the other hand, in like North Carolina, I wrote a story about a woman who was arrested for open carrying an unloaded rifle through her neighborhood. Now, there's no law against open carrying in North Carolina, but they have like a what they call a common law thing that the courts basically made up, that is going armed to the terror of the people, right? That if you walk through North Carolina with weapons that scare people, you can be arrested for carrying that weapon, and it's not really very well defined. So this woman was charged with a misdemeanor and had her weapons confiscated and stuff like that, and I believe the charges were eventually dropped, but this is you have these obvious differences in laws between different states, and how courts determine that, on a federal level, if they're going to say, well, the First Amendment doesn't guarantee your right to write violent rap lyrics, or the Supreme Court doesn't says that you don't have the right to talk about violence on the internet. Well, this clearly affects me very directly. It affects a lot of different music. I think it's a pretty important and widespread thing.
So basically, the idea right now legally is that in order for something to be a threat, that it should have a direct message to someone, that it should be a specific intention to harm, or to just, you're speaking words that say you're going to cause harm to that person. But if you make a general statement out into the ether that you're posting on your Facebook profile, you're not aiming something directly at that person, even if you use their name to that in that general Facebook post.
So
is that a threat?
It depends.
I'm going to kill my ex-wife,
right?
Or I'd like to kill my ex-wife.
Right.
Not I'm going to, but
I'd like to kill my ex-wife is a remarkably different statement than I'm going to kill my ex-wife, right? So I don't think that the statement needs to necessarily be directed at the victim, right? Mm-hmm. So like if he goes on his Facebook and says, I'm going to kill my ex-wife, well, this is a threat, right? This is something that he's putting out there. He's openly telling people that he intends to do something, right? I think the question of a threat is an intent, right? So if I go and I make a rap song about killing police officers, right? And if I make I make a rap song that says I'm going to kill officer so and so, these are two very different things, right? I'm directing a threat at a person versus expressing my outrage at this violent criminal organization that's locking people up for possessing plants.
So I'm curious on this. When it comes to writing a song, I mean, is it possible to it is not possible to legally write a song that says, the chorus is, I'm going to kill my ex-wife. I'm going to kill my ex-wife. I have no ex-wife, by the way, people.
That's why I said it like that too.
Right. But I mean, it's interesting that you can really, you can't do that?
Yeah, one of the things that I did a quote from him that I read in another article about the story says he made a post at one point after the FBI left that he said, it's illegal for me to tell you that I want to kill my ex-wife, but it's not illegal for me to tell you that it's illegal that I want to kill my ex-wife. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like there's these, these lines,
Yes.
are
This
sort of
guy has
intricate. It's weird.
was trying to dance along the lines of what's legal and what's not legal.
Right.
Sometimes I consider those people to be heroes. In this case, I tend not to feel that way. He seems much more like a petulant, damaged man than anything else. But
the
I don't-
dangerous proposal that's on the table here is that it will change from it being required that there be some sort of target for the threat in an actual threat to a statement that could offend someone into thinking that they're somehow under, threat of violence, that they're scared. If somebody's scared, then therefore it's a threat.
Yeah, if
That's the
your
proposal.
words alarm somebody, then you might be threatening,
Right.
and that's something
That's
very
what the lower
subjective.
courts are suggesting.
Yeah.
And
Here's
the
what I
Supreme
wanna
Court
know.
is being asked to look at.
The wife's alarm is the crime.
Yeah.
Here's what I want to know on this one, though, is let's say somebody walks up to someone and says, "I'm going to kill you," and they sound for all the world to be very, very serious, and then they turn around and they walk away. Are you allowed to pull out a gun at that point and shoot that person in the back?
Damn good question.
I would.
I mean, because if that's a threat, then if we're talking about this person has created a situation where they have, I'm in immediate danger. I don't know when they're going to kill me.
You could have thought they were taking 20 paces and would turn around and shoot you, right?
You don't know. I mean, who knows? I don't know what the answer to this
Of
is
course,
because
then you've got to prove in a court that, when they charge you with murder that, he told me he was going to kill me.
well, let's say we've got it on video.
Yeah.
Let's say it's abundantly clear because all the police are is an agent. All they are is somebody who's able to do what you're able to do. Supposedly, this is the idea in a free world where we have under rights theory, you cannot you can't license out rights that you don't have. So a police officer has no more rights than the individual whom they're protecting. So it's obvious that a police officer can come and kidnap somebody who made such a statement because we would never even question a police officer's ability to do that. However, if they've got the ability to do that, then I have the ability to protect myself. And I would be able to shoot somebody who said this.
I would make the argument that, a person who just said it and sort of walked away, and it would depend on your own perception of the threat, right?
Right.
I mean, if you what is the level of force that you need to use to deal with that threat, and that's the delineation on the use of force.
We'll come back with more. This is Free Talk Live. We've been talking about what is it that constitutes a threat, and the big question here that's going to be in front of the Supreme Court to some extent is, what is a threat? I mean, and previously it's been the statements that are made, whether or not they actually constitute a threat. Now it seems like some courts are arguing that it should be the feelings of the alleged threatee, the receiver of the threat, the threatened. And that's pretty disturbing, although I'm sure that if the Supreme Court rules in favor of the lower courts and lets their decisions stand, and therefore that changes the standard to it being the supposed victim's feelings, I imagine that's not going to apply to me because, I feel threatened by the police on a regular basis. The government. Yeah. I mean, I feel threatened. I mean, you were saying earlier, Chris, that you're scared that the feds are going to come after you with some sort of indictment for some of the lyrics that you've written in a rap song at some point in the past. We see the police with militarized equipment in the streets, the Bearcat, the MRAP, this mine-resistant vehicle. I mean, those are all very threatening to me. So I'd like to, if this goes through, I'd like to go ahead and lodge a formal complaint for threatening against the police, but I imagine they're just going to throw that in the circular file because, the laws don't apply to the police like they apply to the rest of us.
They'll probably arrest you for making false claims and stuff.
Yeah. You couldn't possibly be afraid of us. We're here to protect you.
I think I don't know, maybe they just admit that you being afraid of them is the whole point.
Yeah.
Duh. Why do you think we wear black uniforms?
Yeah.
Why do you think we wear the sunglasses?
Mm-hmm.
Why do you think we roll around and with this crazy military equipment?
Why do you think we shoot dogs?
We're supposed to be making you scared.
Free Talk Live, 7 nights a week from 7 to 10 Eastern, live on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.